Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Resilient Show. And we were at the Smith & Wesson booth for SHOT Show. And we're going to do a few episodes while we're here. So we got Andrew Arrabito. Did I say it right?
Yep.
Andrew Arrabito, or Bito. Did you pick out what gun you're going to take yet?
I didn't know that's a thing.
Yeah, you get a gun.
Nice. All right.
I would recommend
the lever action.
This guy here. This is the brand new Smith & Wesson Stealth.
That's like the 4570 black edition one. That's badass.
Super rugged. It's got the Picatinny rail.
Done.
That's what I go with, man.
100%.
You get it 44 Magnum, 357, or a 40 or a 45.
70. Perfect.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well, let's make sure we get through the podcast see if I deserve it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
you're going to deserve it. You're going to deserve it. So for those who don't know, I think most of my audience that'll be listening is probably shares. We've got a pretty similar audience. Andrew was a Navy SEAL, did 10 years or 12 years in the Navy.
10 years.
10 years in the Navy, and at multiple SEAL teams, did deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan and Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And then got out of the Navy and started some amazing companies, Half-Face Blades, which I've always been huge. That's where I started following you. I think a lot of people have. Huge fan of your blades.
Appreciate it.
They're just so quality and beautiful, and you do such artistic work. And then you're an avid hunter like myself, and do
more
some
and
great
more.
hunting.
Yeah, I'm blessed.
Wine company.
Little wine label, small and growing on the side, a little side project, but
then you have
really cool.
You have We KBD.
Yeah,
We Kill Bad Dudes Apparel.
That's just like a little side project. What I did with that is some of my main guys who, I had hired when I started my Half-Face Blades, I wanted them to be part of something and have ownership of something. So I just started that on the side and gave them all percentage ownership.
Yeah.
As they're working for Half-Face, and we would get together and create stuff and design stuff and then do these drops. And then the more effort they want to put in, at least they have some ownership in it. At the end of the year, whatever money it makes, I'll take a chunk of that and divide it up according to their ownership, and they get kind of a little bonus at the end of the year for that. So
you're an entrepreneur and doing business. One of the things I tell all my guys that work for me is treat your job like you own the company.
Yeah.
Like if you owned a restaurant and the pipe busted in the middle of the night, you'd be there.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I mean, owning a business, people, once it's growing successful and you work yourself out of a job and you start building your team, you know what I mean? And people start seeing you going on cool trips and this and that. And they're like, oh, you're so lucky. And you're like, oh, okay, dude. Like, I still work when I'm on trips, unless I'm in the middle of the Alaskan range and I have no service. But, you start the business, you have a vision. No one's going to care as much about it as you or most people. And then you start bringing those people on that love and respect you and want to be part of that business, and you treat them really good. And if you want to have low turnover, especially in a business where you have to have creativity.
Right.
If it's a normal 9 to 5 and you're just putting parts in a machine, you can have turnover. You know what I mean? You can teach somebody how to do that. But with a business with a lot of creativity, you need to really take care of those guys and allow them to be creative within reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you don't want turnover in a business like that when you train somebody for a year and then they're like, oh, I'm out.
Right.
Yeah.
But Half-Face is your main effort.
Yeah.
So I want to get to your military service, but while we're on Half-Face, what inspired you? Like, there's lots of stuff you could have done, but why a knife company?
When I was a kid, I had 2 older brothers and an older sister. My older brothers really loved Western culture and Native American culture, and they loved the outdoors huge, and they were doing wilderness survival, and they're pretty young and snaring animals, and they were really big into making arrowheads, and they'd get leaf springs and get the old benchtop grinders and be grinding knives, and I grew up kind of running around doing that every day. And so kind of grew up, of course, using knives. I've always been an end user, outdoors family. And then later on, after they died, and I just joined the SEAL teams and used knives on the tactical side and started hunting again toward the end of my SEAL career. I was like working a little bit in LA on movie stuff, and that's kind of fun, but I'm not a fan of LA, and trying to go get jobs is just not my thing. I'd rather be out in the woods. And I was like, I think I was just hungover in the bathtub actually one time, and I was sitting there like, oh man, I was like, what can I do that can support my buddies overseas, support what I love to do, and get me outdoors, mental health, and I was like, man, I was thinking about back in the day making knives with my older brothers, and I was like, man, I'm an end user, which is really the best place to come from.
Right.
And I was like, all right, I'm going to start making some knives. I know the shapes that do certain jobs. I know the thickness of steel that, it's going to be needed. So I started doing research on different grinders and whatever steels, some of the best steels for the job. And I was under the awning in my backyard, and I was like, all right, got, the best steel for the job, certain thickness, and I got one grinder, and I was like, all right, and so started drawing stuff up and making knives from there. And I was taking pictures of my learning process. And I started with a pretty simple, like camp style knife, outdoor knife, and I just did 50. And I had a plastic table. And as I was making them, I was posting, and I had an email address. I started a little S Corp, and you'd have to email if you wanted to get one of this first 50 knives I was making. And it was like a piece of tape with the person's name and email address on a little plastic table in my house. Yeah. And I was under the awning. And like, by the time those 50, they're like, I was done making them, everybody, like, I had it filled up. So it was pretty random people looking online. And then a lot of them were like good friends or buddies that were like, hey, I want to support you. You know what I mean? So I sold all those first knives for around $300, and I kept 0. And since then, last few years, since the business has just grown and hiring my buddies, we all grew. There was all these people wanted those original knives that we had made, and those knives have gone from 20 to 40,000 bucks a knife if you could find one. Right. Just the first 50, it was wild. And I never knew, like,
those first 50 knives.
Yeah. And even after that. So originally I was going to actually do a half face logo for each design. So it was like, there was a lion, because my father, before he died, he was an artist, and there's this huge lion painting. It's on my wall at my mom's house. So I did a half a lion. The lion is like the protector of his tribe and his people, and he has courage, and it's the meaning behind the symbols, right? So it was a half a lion's face on the first 50. And then the next one was a karambit, and I had half an eagle's face. The next one, it was called the disaster relief knife, and I had half a Zeus's face on it. Then the fourth knife, I was reading up on Custer and some of the Crow Indians that were helping him, the Crow Scouts, you know what I mean? So I designed that one, and that's where I came up with the one with the Indian with the 2 eagle feathers. Yeah. And so then I was like, man, this is gonna be really tough making new designs. How am I gonna come up with enough half faces? So I ended up sticking with that one. I do throwbacks. It's
a good choice.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it represents so much, you know what I mean? But I do throwbacks to the old original designs, and I'll number them and auction them here and there, which is rad. So,
heck yeah.
I probably got off course a little bit.
So you went from doing that on your table to how many employees you have now?
38 employees.
Yeah.
And I was just able recently to save up and buy a warehouse, which I'm so stoked. I was looking for 5 years. Yeah. Finally got one, build out, moving over there in the next 3 weeks. A lot of stuff going on, but
how many years has it been?
10
years.
Yeah.
So I love this book. I talk about it on the show all the time. Joshi gets on me when I repeat stuff, but I just love this book. It's called The Myth of the Overnight Success. Okay. And so
I'll read it.
The premise is everyone sees, you, Andrew, and they like see half face. They see pictures you going hunting and like, man, that guy's so lucky. He has this knife company and it's overnight success, right? Yeah. And people don't see
the work in
no time, the failures, the grinding. They don't see what it took to get there. It's just an overnight success. That theory is a myth.
Even if your business is successful and it's growing and you see a lot of success, you also have a serious responsibility for taking care of your people, right? Making sure they're good to go. I feel such a responsibility. Like, even if there's dips in the economy, which the last 2 years, there's been some serious dips, and there's guys who had started that didn't make it. Luckily, we built a brand big enough in our team that we could, make it through some harder times. But you really got to take care of your guys. And the last thing I want to do is get rid of one of my guys who's like married with kids, and that paycheck is putting food on the table. And so it's like, I have this weight on my shoulders sometimes when the economy is down. I'm like, well, okay, how can I be creative? How can I still be successful? I don't want to get rid of guys. I want to make sure these guys are taken care of. They have a job, and it's like, what can I do different, even facing the lack of growth of an economy, because it's going to affect your job. That in of itself, is a bit of a weight for a business owner, right? Yeah. When they care about their men and their people like a lot.
As I mentioned, we opened, the election just happened. President Trump was inaugurated. And businesses, the economy is going to flourish under President Trump, clearly. Yep, what's it mean for you as a business owner? I mean, I think most of the people that watch this show are probably conservative people that are excited President Trump. So maybe there's people that aren't.
Well, honestly, because I've been looking for about 5 years, even during COVID, we did pretty much, we doubled every year till the last year of COVID, which was, I think, 2022. Like I had been looking before that for a business, a place to buy. And I think everything worked out because the last 2 years have been a little rougher and everything worked out. This place hadn't come to market. Another SEAL buddy of mine, Nick Norris, found this spot before it went to market, and like everything worked out. So it was an answer to prayer, the
good.
timing to set myself and my team up and my business up for success for this next 4 years, hopefully longer.
We're hoping, 12, 16. I mean, with election integrity, I think we could go. We're going definitely. This is a patriotic country.
And I know we can grow this economy and protect people here better. It's such a low possibility of swinging the pendulum the other way at the end of his term. If the economy is doing good and we're doing good as America, and also our allies. If we do well, our allies will do well, ideally.
Yeah, I agree. I want to go back. You mentioned your family a couple of times.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear, about your family and the dynamic of what the loss that you experienced, catastrophic loss you experienced in your life through your family. But growing up before the Navy, what was that like?
I grew up in Napa Valley, kind of on the hill above St. Helena. It's like upper Napa Valley, real small town, Seventh-day Adventist town. My dad was an artist and a minister, and he loved history, like religious history, and would do religious history documentaries and stuff, and travel. My two older brothers, Tony and Joey, older sister, I was the youngest. My dad would go up to Alaska, and he was interviewing this little village out in the middle of nowhere. I can't remember, it was outside of Kotzebue up there, and he'd been up there a couple times, and he was working on a documentary of this little village that was living 30, 40 years longer than all these other villages. And this one guy, Manilik, had some dreams to live better and was teaching his village. And it was like such an interesting story. So my dad liked the outdoors. So he had taken my older brothers, 13 and 11, up there, do some fishing, go fly out in the middle of nowhere and interview these people. So they were coming home from that trip, and they were in a plane with the pilot, and they got in a storm, just hit a mountain outside of Talkeetna, and then died on impact. Kind of happens, you know what I mean?
How old were you?
I was 7.
7?
Yeah, my sister was 9. They're missing for a few days, found, and it is what it is, you know what I mean? But
I always ask this because I had some losses in my family. My brother was killed. I was 14. He was 15.
Sorry.
So so I could connect. I mean, not in that same level, but to lose that many people at one time that close to you. But at what age do you think it hit you where you realize?
I mean, being 7, what death is a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe the understanding of, I guess you can't say there's any good age for loss.
Sure.
I think if you're really young, it's probably better. If you're too old, you spent so much time with them, right?
Yeah.
So being 2 or 3, 7 is kind of that, 7 to 10 is that middle ground where you kind of accept it, you understand it a little bit. You unsure how it's going to affect you later in your life, whether you can't get close to people because of loss. If you're older and you're 20 years old and you're super close with your family, you feel blessed you got to spend that time with them. But in my opinion, like, I would think that's so gnarly. Or in my opinion too is if you are fighting with your family or fighting with somebody, or you're upset with them and they die, and you're like, I'm an idiot,
right,
like over something small. So I think it's affected me, later on in life. And like, I've been, and closer to some of my SEAL buddies that have died, I think, than I knew Tony and Joey and my brothers, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Just because spending time with them, the maturity of being an adult.
Correct. But I understand, like, that was, living by the sword and going to war, and that's what they want to do.
Sure.
Apart from, and also buddies that have taken their own lives, right? It's like, whatever they were going through, we look out for your buddies as much as you can, and you help your buddies in need, but like, you can't keep a gun out of their hand, you know what I mean? Right. And that's the sad part. Like, I don't know, that's a tough one. My sister, she's a missionary overseas. She has 4 boys. My mom goes and visits her all the time. I don't go to the country they're in because it kind of puts a red flag on their head, because they're not supposed to be missionaries in that country. I support mission work big time, but I don't support kind of dragging your family over to an area that's probably not the best for the kids, a little bit unsafe. And growth when it comes to education and everything too. So
because the kid doesn't have a say, right? You
correct.
gotta
It's like, do it before you have kids, do it after, you know. And I've had the argument with my sister's husband. He's an amazing man. And he's like, well, we want to teach our kids what Jesus was like. He was a fisher of men. And I was like, yeah, you know what he did? He chose to be a fisher of men instead of being married and having children, because that would have had to have been number one in his life. He wouldn't have been able to be a fisher of men, and you know, if he had had a wife and kids, because that becomes number one. You're second.
Very true.
So,
yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, Apostle Paul chose to be single.
Yep.
For those same reasons.
Yeah. I don't know. Life's
not picking on your sister, but I somewhat agree, and especially in those really high risk environments.
Yeah.
And I say that because I've had a lot of friends that have done the same thing in the missionary field.
Yeah.
And well, they ask my advice. I'm like, no,
it's not worth it in the end. And here's the bigger picture. God, guardian angels, bad things happen to good and bad people. Good things happen to good and bad people. And you can think you're there for the right reasons. You can be like, I'm here to help everybody, the good and the bad. Guess what? Look at Jessica Buchanan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's over an aid worker in Somalia, gets rolled up. Guys have to skydive in and save her ass. A bunch of those guys are married. A bunch of the guys have kids. There's a real dudes that are taking this mission on.
Yeah.
They're going to have to get to the ground jumping in, which is dangerous. They have to go into target and kill a bunch of bad dudes and hopefully not get shot so they can go home to their family. You know, and she gets saved. She goes back. She wants to go visit the guys who saved her. And she tries to go back to Somalia to be like, oh, you know, God saved me. I'm not scared. And they're like, yeah, but he uses men to do it. And these men have families and children. And it's, don't you dare put these great men at risk to save you because of blind faith or not recognizing who God's using to save your ass.
And the consequences that come on other people.
And then not taking the responsibility when something bad happens. That's like, if you choose to drag your family to a more dangerous area and then something bad happens to your kid, well, and you prayed on it and you believe God is the one that kind of told you to go do this, well, guess what? You can throw your hands up and say it's God's will versus taking that impact on your own heart and soul that you chose this and you should take the responsibility of the risk you put up with your family. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know.
No, I align with you on that. And I say that because I have a lot of friends that you've had this conversation with your sister. I've had this with a lot of people. And I don't know if they're calling for advice or they call them validation because they want to do it anyway. They've already decided. They're just correct. They want me to.
And you know, it's like she's an incredible mom, incredible their father. I think it's been hard on the relationship. I'm really happy for them to come back home. Their kids are amazing. You know what I mean? But
yeah, there are things they're going to learn that's going to make them.
There's so much that could have gone wrong.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so with your dad, I mean, passing at such an early age, is there anything about his life that you think is like a legacy factor that's poured into you?
Probably.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, he was just a good dude. He was a good father from what I remember. He was good to my mom. My mom's an incredibly strong Christian woman. She's a pastor, minister. Yeah. She's just the sweetest lady I've ever known in my life. She has a prayer list that's a mile long. People that barely know her just know that. And I see it. She's so close to like God in my mind, like this perfect woman that people call her and like, put me on your prayer list. You know what I mean? She does. She's a good woman. She's always stayed strong, like raised me after that. My sister, I love her to death. I see her all the time. I don't know, man. That's, being that young, I'm sure there's characteristics. I think, that loss has done for me is wanting to make sure I don't f it up, or I want to keep working on it. Yeah. And through all my faults and stuff like that, I really love and care for my friends so much, and I want to see them successful. I want them happy, and I really don't need anything of my own. I want to share everything. And a lot of my goal of success, actually all of my goal of success, is to buy time. And that's time with my friends and time with my family. So if I can make this amount of money, I can go pay for their flights to come visit me, or I can pay for the vacation so we can all be together. And I can do all these things that I couldn't do before without success to buy time with those I love the most. Because loss sucks. You know what I mean? It's, you know, some people have gone through more loss than others.
It gives you a perspective of what's important. Yeah. Yeah. That's
time with them.
Time's important. Yeah.
You can't stop time, but you sure as hell can figure out a way to make time if you, and money creates an opportunity to be able to make time. Really does. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Success relieves a lot of burdens.
Correct.
For people.
I mean, one of the biggest stressors, and I think with anybody, is a financial burden.
Sure. Yeah. So now you get raised by a widowed mom
Yeah.
and a sister.
And she had to be a mom and a dad.
How's that prepare you to go to Buds?
There was no women in Buds then,
Yeah.
so I don't have to deal with them.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm staying here.
My,
I'm staying forever. This is great.
My mom's cousin actually lived up there in Angwin. He was older guy, really awesome guy. His name was Ethan. And he bought me like a Navy SEAL workout book when I was in 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is awesome. You see the guy climbing the cargo net, Mark D. Liesel, who ended up working for Blackwater early on when they did thin skin vehicles, and he was hung from the bridge in Fallujah. Yeah. I mean, it was that book, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. So I was like 7th and 8th grade time frame, and I was like, Navy SEALs, cool. I started looking in during high school to the different special operations. I was like, Army SF, TAC Ps, all that stuff. And I was like, well, once I forgot who I talked to. Someone was like, well, where are the bases located? Because some of these bases suck. And I was like, East Coast, West Coast, Navy SEALs. I was like, and I love water. I was like, oh yeah, that's where I'm going. So I signed up and went to boot camp, went to AO school in Pensacola, Florida, and then showed up to Buds, and then crushed Buds and SQT, and then went to Team 5.
Team 5, that's where you started.
Yeah.
What was Team 5 like?
It was great, but I checked into a platoon that was like the gnarliest, the biggest dudes. I was like 165 pounds, and like there's a few of us new guys, and it was like Tommy Kremens. I don't know if you ever heard of Tommy Kremens, and he's like tatted up from here down. He's got a gold anchor in his tooth.
Oh yeah.
He was out East Coast at Team 4, and then he went down to the Philippines and like pretty much disappeared for a while working with whoever down there.
He's got a diamond in the middle of the anchor in his tooth.
Yeah, and he's just tatted up. He was my first chief, Tommy Kremens. And then it was like Keikoa Lee. They're all, a lot of those guys went out to the East Coast of squadrons, but they were, Cake and Treskin were both football players at Hawaiian State University, like 250 pound, like 245, like just big. Tage Gill, I don't know if you ever met Tage. Worked at the agency for a while. Kevin Kent, just monsters, and they were unruly, and we were new guys too. So we ended up getting in so much trouble. They disbanded our platoon, and we had to stay behind until SEAL Team 7 deployed. We were like the bastard kids. We deployed to Team 7.
Where'd you guys go?
Iraq. We ended up having to do like the first couple months. We were doing protection, for Zakawi and the 6th or 7th highest ranking guys there were the crap people, but I was lead driver for a couple months. Then we were doing ops out of BIOP. And then from there, we got called up north to, I went all the way up to Habbaniyah and then Talifar to do ops up there, which was a lot of fun. You don't want to drive people around. Doing protection sucks.
No, yeah. I've never had a desire for a PSD or
no, like the training's fun to do it. Like going to driving schools is a blast, but you're driving around like, seeing cars on the side of the road, you're like, this doesn't look good. Yeah, it was great. Good deployment. It's fun. Loved it.
How many other deployments did you do?
2. After that one came back, and because we deployed to 7, we had a year turnaround. Went to Southeast Asia, Philippines. Then I ended up going to Indonesia. Coming back from that one, waited around, and then went over to SEAL Team 1.
That's known to be the very disciplined team.
It used to be before we went, and it was like no fun one for a while. But by the time that was 2008, it was like they had some pretty good leadership over there. They actually brought the Master Chief was old Red Squadron Master Chief. They brought over Kevin James. I don't know if you remember Kevin James, awesome dude, old school dude. Came over and he was the Master Chief of Team 1. Then he was awesome. He's like, I want these guys to get work. Afghan was still kicking off a little bit. And he was like, you're going to be in this platoon with Dan Luna. And he was like, hey guys, stack the platoons that are going to war. You know what I mean? So it was like, pull the best guys, super troop. It was like, cool. Then it was like a good workup, badass deployment. We pulled like Ryan Bates we like needed more guys, more snipers and corpsmen, of course. So we pulled them from guys that were going to Iraq. Just cherry picked the best guys.
You guys went to Afghanistan for that one?
Yeah. It's fun.
That was how was that? How was that deployment? What was the mission for that deployment?
Find shitty people and end their life.
That was like down with Kandahar.
Yeah, so we did ops out of Kandahar, with DEA fast teaming on our own. Then from there we ended up planning. Actually, weird enough, me, Brad Kavner, he passed away. We're planning some ops with the DEA fast guys.
Yeah.
And we ended up like the day before we got pulled off. We were squad 2. Dan Luna was our LPO into chief. went up to Fob, Anaconda up in the Ruzgon.
Yeah.
And the next day they go on that op and the bird crashed and killed half the guys on board.
Oh, man.
So 47, they came off target, like hit a hillside, kind of banked before the hillside, and then just too much of an angle. So the lift wasn't there and just nosed it back in. And the front, 47 just comes right through and just kills everybody. From my buddy Pat, was sitting here across from him and all the guys that left live, and like to his right, all the dudes died. And you have all the Afghans on the floorboard too, just smoked.
Days.
So, I mean, we would have been in it.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. Dodged a few there.
Was that your most kinetic deployment?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I haven't really talked on the show. I hadn't really talked to a lot of like kinetic operations. I'd love to share with like what kinetic operations looked like in Afghanistan. I know I've talked to a few guys on the show so far. We talked about kinetic operations in Iraq, but not really Afghanistan.
I mean, there's areas where a lot of times you're trying to find bomb builders, obviously, and you're kind of working with the information before you get there.
Yeah.
And then there's guys that are creating sources and human and finding where guys are. And then you're going to hitting that compound and PIDing guys and being like, oh, we got them. And then from there's obviously Overwatch. We did Overwatch for the Hazaris. They're like Genghis Khan descendant, and we let them have their guns. They let their boys and girls go to school, and we just we did Overwatch for some of the schools for them. Some of the stuff was just, hey, we know that, and here's a map of where we're at, our little fob. We know that this whole valley is all Taliban controlled,
right? And
it would be disruption ops. So we'd go up at night, we'd take our horses up there. We'd study the map, find a good compound to go into, sneak in, wake the people up in the morning, just raise a flag and wait, and be listening to them with our little backpacks, like raise the flag and be like, hey, like, we're here to get into a fight. Here we are. And a lot of, the tier 1 guys are like, that's stupid. And I'm like, oh, I got to kill 5 guys that day. You know what I mean? So, and you would know, like if you're glassing, you would know like women and children would start leaving.
Right.
And you're going to get into it, which is great. Picking those fights. It's really interesting because they'll wait, like you come in a bird instead of hiking in, and some of those are like, we're almost landing on target, getting out, and we would carry like a 50 cal with rounds in, or an ALGL, that Mark 19 bigger one, and like hit the target, get to the building, set up in a building, and then wait to get attacked and have a lot of firepower. And plus, obviously, you can call for fire. The disruption ops, you're just doing a PLO and saying, hey, we're going to go out and do a patrol versus like a whole thing with the talk. You know what I mean? So those are easier. And especially if you can't get a lot of air assets, you still want to go out. There's always places to go to get into a fight.
For a Whiteside SEAL team, I mean, what kind of air assets do you guys have?
We had TF like 160th here and there. A lot of times they were busy or they didn't have enough birds. It would really depend if the mission profile was that important, of course, and we would have a stack with fast movers, AC-130 occasionally, A-10.
Yeah.
It would just really depend. Like if there's a big enough or important enough target package, there'd be more of us on the op, and then we'd have access to pretty much anything. Yeah. And a lot of times, like we did an op of probably 11 to 12,000 feet, and it was, I think we flew in that one with, I can't remember. That was probably Blackhawks with the 2 Apaches, like ripping around when you're coming in. Just anybody popping up on the hillside, the Apaches are trying to take out before they can shoot, because that's most vulnerable. I remember, getting on the 47 and there'd be guys up laying by rocks that are hot all day with a blanket over them. They have an RPG and you couldn't see them, because they're laying up against the rock. And then, this is from the pilots, and you come in and land a 47, everybody's getting on the 47. Those guys would peel that blanket away, hop, on the rock and try to launch an RPG at you.
Yeah.
And the Apaches light them up. It's pretty quick. And
oh yeah, it's incredible.
I love it. I don't like it going in and out without those guys.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
It's a really cool picture of you, kind of the half-face blades picture of you with the Indian tribal war paint on. Well, what's the story behind that picture?
Well, we had these crappy horses, and Ryan Bates was like, oh, I've broken horses before. And I was like, oh, please. And Ryan, he's hilarious. He's like, oh, I really have. I promise. Look at it. Here's a picture of me with a horse. I was like, that doesn't say you've broken horses. He's like, no, I promise. I was like, okay. So we had, in Anaconda, we had all these little horses, and he did spend some time like breaking horses. And he put me on a really bad horse one day, and it tried to kill me. And I was like, I'm not getting on another horse that you broke. So he finally convinced me. So we'd go on ops and disruption ops and go visit the Hazaris. We were so far out of on a big base with people who we'd have to, we didn't shave, but like, we were like, Dane Luna especially was like, I don't care as long as you're responsible and we're doing hard work. I was like, I don't care what you wear. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm gonna paint my face and give myself a mohawk, and just ride my horse into battle. You know what I mean? So that was rad. It's sometimes also like instilling fear in your enemy is good enough to keep him from fighting you.
Yeah, it's the
so if you can't kill him, right? And after doing that a few times, we would meet with the local leadership, and they were like, and we had been in some gnarly good fights and killed some shitty people. We would visit with the local. Forgot what you call them, the older guys, elders of those villages. And they were like, we have word that the Taliban is talking about some new guys in town that's killing everybody. And there's somebody who paints his face. Yeah. And I was like, yes,
I made it.
Yes.
I've arrived.
Like, yes, that was cool. You know what I mean? So it's just fun, and that face paint thing goes way back, right. To the way natives used to paint their face so they would have more courage or couldn't be killed or, just little things like that. And you see it in World War I, you see it in World War II, and some of it's like you paint your face a certain way so the enemy can't see you and things like that, which is really cool.
Yeah, I've seen that picture before, and it's an epic picture.
It's a rad one, dude.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't get shot half naked. I was wearing like just little black little tighties, and then I had a fox. I forgot. Someone just like shot a little fox in the mountains and made a little fox flap. I was like, I'm wearing that. I think Ryan shot a fox, and then he took the tail and he glued it to the back of his helmet. So he had a fox, like like a little raccoon hat fox, and I had the little flap. And I'm like, yeah, here we go. And it was great. But then when we went back, like when we left Fob Anaconda, it was like, okay, guys, like get rid of your mohawk. We're going to the big base. And I was like, damn it, let's stay here forever.
Yeah, all these rules.
Yeah, it was good. We had like maybe 10 to 12 guys from third group.
Did you guys work together?
Yeah.
What was that like?
They'd been there for a while, and so they're a little burned out, and they were about to be leaving after a month or so. Yeah. And some of those guys were like, man, they wanted to go on ops with us, which was cool. Yeah, there's a guy, Jake Green, really good guy, third group dude, Mormon guy, wouldn't drink, nothing, but he was just a hard ass to be out there. Every op we were on, he was going. Really amazing guy. He's out now. He might be here at the show. I should text him, but I haven't seen him in years,
You recently shared a story of dropping, I think, a 500-pounder.
Yeah, that was so fun. We blew the hole in the wall.
Okay.
And I'm not saying names. I had a loudspeaker, and they're yelling, and I can't say what I didn't want to say what I was yelling at. I was just, really degrading him to piss him off. And then my other buddy, who was a new guy then, had his I say 60, and I just from back in the day, like an M60. It's a Mark 46 or something now.
Right.
And they would be like, you fight like chicks. You're a bunch of whatevers. You fight. And they'd be yelling. I can't tell what they're saying. And they're like, okay, I'd yell, pop some rounds. And he would come around and just dump into the building, 350 yards away. And I was just so fun, like watching that video. Like someone videoed part of it. It's probably, the video's gone now. But like, it was just like, it's fun. That's what it's about. And then it was there, we kept hearing him talk because the rounds were just peppering the side of the building. So then I think Brad Kavanagh was our JTAC, and he's like, all right, everybody get, behind these walls. We're going to fucking drop on it. And it's like just boom. And it was one of the coolest things ever. And didn't need to talk to him anymore, but that was rad. It was a good danger close drop.
Hey, I'm super proud that Smith & Wesson Firearms is a supporter of this show. I have been shooting Smith & Wesson Firearms since I was a kid. This is one of America's most patriotic companies that has been around 170 years. The Resilient Show is honored to partner with Smith & Wesson. I personally use Smith & Wesson Firearms every day for my everyday carry. I keep Smith & Wesson Firearms in my home for my home defense. When I'm out on the range practicing, it is a Smith & Wesson at the end of my grip. So check them out, and I hope you join me in carrying one of America's most iconic firearms. Yeah. Man, something about like after the 20 plus years of Afghanistan to see what we learned as warfighters, like the capabilities we have, and how the lessons learned. So much institutional knowledge has changed, and what we've seen also is these especially radical differences in administrations is the rules of engagement changing. That a lot of frustration from guys like you, who had all multiple combat experience, 2 different theaters or 3 different theaters, and then leaving at 10 years. guys who have multiple generations of warfighters in their family and not continuing their legacy family
Right.
because of. So we've seen this just complete like shift in our morale, our recruitment, and our retention. Like I said, I was just in DC and I was with Pete Hegseth, and
Yeah.
the things that he's bringing to the table for the Department of Defense, for the military, is to address the morale, recruitment, and retention.
Yeah.
And I just want to know, like, from a guy, our generation of warfighters, what did you see in your 10 years in shift from when you came in early as a brand new Navy SEAL,
Yeah.
going to war, having the deployments, like you said, you what you saw in the poster,
Right.
a lot of people don't get to do, right?
And
And you got
it's
to
hit
do
or
it.
miss, because there's
Yeah.
guys who've been in and did more deployments than me that just were in a different platoon that didn't get to do as much. So
Right.
like right place, right time is obviously huge.
Yeah.
And then as you do more platoons, you realize like where the right place, right time
Yeah, you
can
start
be.
kind of
You know what I mean?
stack it, yeah. But how
there's guys-
have you seen the culture shift over 10 years, or your 10 years in
I
and
think
now?
Technology has gotten better. Training, I think, has gotten better because of the enemy is always growing, and they're able to buy good equipment, and they're able to learn from tactics, and it's out there. Like tactics are out there. You go to the internet, you can pretty much find anything, even though they're never going to be as good as us. Just the way the war changed from the beginning with thin-skinned vehicles and then IEDs, and then it was okay to blow yourself up, which is not in the Quran. You know what I mean? It's a fatwa that was put out, Anwar Waki, like little things like that. And like there's guys that have been in since 98 and they're still in. There's some guys 30 years, and those guys have seen the culture difference. At one point, we got a really nice gym, and we had, people to help with. Back in the day, it was like lift heavy, go to war. And then they're like, okay, well, we need longevity, mental and physical. And there was like, okay, physical longevity, let's help guys, because it's constant going to war and it breaks you down physically, it breaks you down mentally. Guys over years, many deployments that just having trouble, of course.
Yeah.
Then it's been really important the last, I don't know how many years, mental health, right? And guys come forward and work on it. Those are really good shifts in taking care of the individual for longevity. And if you fight a long war, you need that longevity in the guys who have the combat experience, and you want them to stay in. So when there's a administration and there's not a lot of war going on, you haven't given these guys, you haven't taken the ropes off, you haven't opened the door to these guys to be able to do work and take care of our enemies of the world. Guys are like, you know what, I'm out.
Yeah.
I joined for this X, Y, and Z, and this is killing the morale. We're not taking care of the enemy. Enemies are getting let go and traded. Like, you're like, screw you to your government. And you're like, I don't want to be a part of this. I want to be part of why I joined, because I'm a protector and I love my country. Destroys morale.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen the same thing, and I think clearly, and not think it's a direct attribution to not only the recruitment but the retention, and the retention is it takes that institutional knowledge out of the institution and to be prepared for the next fight.
Right.
I mean, you go to some units there's probably some SEAL teams. You go to the platoon and you'll probably have like 2 or 3 combat vets in it.
Yeah.
In the platoon.
Yeah. It's I think, the best thing is no war. Right. Like, peace is incredible.
Right.
But it's not going to happen. And there's certain people that are good at certain things and compartmentalizing and protectors and want to do this. They need to be supported the same way as our law enforcement. There's always bad cops and there's amazing law enforcement. To give them the support and the training and the development needed, is what we need to do. And those guys have been on the of the stick with support.
That's what I was going to ask, addressing those things: morale, recruitment, retention.
Yeah.
The recruitment's a big part of recruitment. It's always quality, right? Because recruitment can start struggling.
Sure.
They're like, hey, we have to get more people in. Let's lower the standard to bring more people in. That jeopardizes the culture, kills the morale. It's it's a secular problem. If you had the ear of the SecDef right now and say, hey, here's some things you could do to improve in morale, recruitment, retention. What kind of things would you be recommending?
Well, I think it's already being handled. Getting rid of certain leadership in this country where you're a dude dressed like a female and you're in charge of public health in our country, and with being woke and the military, getting rid of all that, and it's happening right now. I think you get the right people for the right job out the gate. Recruitment, make the recruitment videos better than these weird effed up trans recruitment videos. Like that's the point of being part of the greatest fighting force on earth. It has nothing to do with it. Qualification, quality has the greatest to do with it. And those are you get the right guys, and then they're all working together. Like, you want to stay there because of the boys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, when there's a war on and it's a gnarly war, more people try out. Quality sometimes gets a little bit less if you need more guys, but guys are working and we're learning, and like the right people stay in when there's job security going to war. But also at the end of the day, you lose your buddies, and that sucks too. So you have the greatest honor on earth going to war, and you have the greatest heartbreak.
Very, very true. Very true. Anybody, I guess, shout out to someone you want to remember you lost?
I mean, there's Gio. I got buddies I probably have 4 or 5 buddies who've killed themselves, and then Brad Kavner, Derek Benson, Aaron Vaughn, Jesse Pittman, guys in Extortion 17. Lost a few buddies there.
Too many, unfortunately.
Yeah, and there'll be more. But it's interesting. A lot of the guys from my era have been getting out in the last couple of years, and they're moving on to do different jobs and being successful, and it's really incredible. And it's blessed to see them grow and being with their family and being with their kids and going to different, learning from different businesses and getting involved. And the first few years is pretty hard on guys if they don't stay extremely busy.
Yeah.
But it's good to see guys getting out and moving on. Dan Luna's in master's degree. Like, you have DJ and those guys crushing it, I love it 100%. I want to see success. Success is one thing. I want to see happiness among those guys and their relationships.
Yeah, you seem like I'm just getting to know you. You seem like a guy that really cares about people.
Some I don't. I like to kill them. Yeah. The other ones, I love them.
Yeah, I guess
there's no in between.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't be. Like, you're either all in or all out when it comes to friendships.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm kind of that way too.
Yeah.
But where our communities are right now, especially post service community, we need people that have that heart, that really care about. And you mentioned veteran suicide several times.
Yeah.
It's something that's been close to my heart. I almost succumb to that as well. And I
think a lot of guys have been there and thought about it. Like, I was there at one point, and I was like, looked at my gun, and I looked at my dog Nug, it's an American Bulldog, and I was like, who's gonna love you as much as I'm gonna love you?
Yeah.
Like, who's gonna snuggle with you as good as I'm gonna hug you and snuggle with you? You know what I mean? And I was like, I can't do it. I have a responsibility to stay alive, because I love others more than myself, and that's a battle,
When it comes to those listening right now that are struggling with taking their life, veterans or non-veterans,
right.
I think that's a good message. Is you have a responsibility to stay alive. People, you might not feel like people depend on you. I think a lot of times people feel like they're a burden.
Yeah, they're 100%. And they're not being who they need to be to support others that love them. And if you feel like you're a drag, that's probably a lot of it, right? With guys, is like feeling that they're a burden on their family versus an asset.
Yeah,
that's tough.
That was me. Most of the people on the show have heard my story before, and it was that thought came over me that my family would be sad without me, but they would be better off.
Oh man!
And I really believed they would be better off because I was such a tyrant to them and just drain on them. But now on this side of it, I see that same lie, that same hopeless thought that so many of our brothers and sisters that have felt and then gave into it. But unfortunate job I've had at Mighty Oaks, I get to see the other side of it.
Right.
And family members.
When guys make it through without doing it.
And their families.
I didn't understand suicide so much for a while, and I felt it was like weakness or cowardly behavior. And I went through so much of it with those I loved, and that belief that you just said of they truly believe that they're more of a burden than an asset.
It's a lie, right?
Correct.
It's that thought's a lie, but
Correct.
That's the mindset they're in. There's one I've shared this story a couple of times. I was speaking at church in a place called Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And when I speak, I usually have a Mighty Oaks flyer, and I hold it up and I say, because everything we do is free, right? We pay for flights, we do about $8 million a year in programming, so
awesome. Take
advantage of it. And from my viewpoint on the stage, I could see the wives nudging the husband, like, "Hey, that's you. You need to go to this program."
Yeah.
And so in the crowd, there was a lady named Heather and her husband Pete, and she encouraged him to go to Mighty Oaks. And he said all the excuses, right? That's not for me. I don't want to take a slot for someone else. He didn't go. 6 months later, I got a call from the pastor, Ron Woods of that church, and he said, "We had a suicide in our church. This guy Pete, he stood in the back of a pickup truck, surrounded by police, and he had a pistol, and he put it to his head, and he said." The same thing we were saying. He said, "Tell my wife I love her and I'm doing this for her." So he had that thought, right? He thought he was
It's
doing
so
it to help her.
sad.
Tell my wife I love her. I'm doing this for her. And he pulled the trigger, blew his brains out. And the pastor said that he wanted me and my wife Kathy to go there. And so I talked to Heather. She wanted to talk to us because she wanted to tell the veteran community
What
that
happened?
lie, right?
Right.
And we went there and met with her, and she was like telling us how she had went to the morgue that night, and they didn't want to let her see him because he had shot himself in the head, right? Gunshot wound to the head. But she insisted, and they couldn't stop her.
Yeah.
And so she went and she said she put her head on his chest, like trying to. She just couldn't believe it wasn't real. Like, I have to hear it. There's no heartbeat. And then calling his mom screamed it would never be the same. And then she talked about like she was grieving in her room in her house alone, and how mad she was that he wasn't there to help her grieve through his loss. Which sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then, but she said something that really stuck with me and really convicted me for where I was believing that same lie. She said, Pete thought by killing himself, he was taking away his pain, but all he did was transfer his pain to everyone that loves him.
Sure.
And it's a transfer of that pain and hurt. It didn't solve anything.
Well, you always wonder, like, everybody's going to wonder what you could have done different. Like Ethan, so the guy that bought me that Navy SEAL workout book, I finally built half-face blades that big enough. I always wanted to just bring him down to live with me and help him out. He had clinical depression since his mom died for 20 years, 50 years old, overweight. He was working on a dock in Brookings, Oregon, and I had like built my business just enough, got my first shop, 900 square feet, and I was like, I could have enough money to hire him, whether he's a good worker or not.
Yeah.
Get him out of the place he's in. I drove all the way to Brookings, talked to him on the phone. I was texting him while he's sitting in his car during lunch, like by the docks, and I banged on his window and I was like, and I was like, you're quitting the job. I moved him down to San Diego, and I battled clinical depression with him. Terrible depression. He'd be like crying, and we'd hug him in my shop and work with him, and he lived in my house every day and like pray with him in the mornings and get him through another day. And he was late to work one morning, and he went to Home Depot parking lot and shot himself in the head with a 22. And it was just like,
oh my gosh,
what can you do?
It's so hard, man, when you do everything to try to just reach these guys, and you feel like you poured everything into it, and then you feel like you missed something, right? And you failed. And but
the clinical depression's different. You know, it's like he'd be like, "Does it ever feel like your heart is breaking all day, every day?" And I'm like, "I know what heartbreak's like. That's horrible. You know, I'm sorry you're going through it. Like, what can I do?"
Yeah.
You know, and it's, I don't know if you just love them so much and you work with them so much, you extend their life a little longer, or you appreciate and understand that 20 years of that level of heartache, he's ended it. And I don't want him to have that pain anymore because I couldn't solve it. You know, can't solve it all.
I clearly could tell that one stings for you. Is there anything you learned from that to be able to help others, like, or to be able to pass on to help others?
I don't know, man. That's a tough one. Gio was a tough one.
Yeah.
You know, that's tough.
Gio was a team guy?
No, he was SIGINT for MARSOC, and then came over to the teams, deployed with Eddie.
Okay.
When Eddie got in trouble, he stood up for him on the stand. He married my niece, changed his last name, my last name. Awesome, funniest dude ever. Battling stuff, and then I don't know, took his life like 4 or 5, maybe longer than that, but just battled stuff. He would put out a lot of information about how to get through suicide. Like, this is what I do, and veterans would listen, talk to a lot of guys, and then they're like, well, you did it. You know what I mean? But I think a lot of stuff that when people do wrong, you forgive, I guess, because you never know what people are going through. Like, I've chewed his ass for being a dummy, and then a little falling out, and then we reconnected really well. And I love you. I don't have anything against you, and reconnected really well. And talked to him Monday. I was able to have an awesome conversation, give him a hug, and you just don't, like, you wouldn't have ever guessed he would do it.
Yeah.
Like, you have no idea sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is pride, chip on the shoulder, pride. You don't want to ask people for help, or doesn't have to be, you don't have to go to the public and call a 1-800 number. You know, a close friend, if you're in financially, a close buddy can be like, all right, let's work on it together. Yeah. I'm not going to tell anybody, you know, if there's pride involved. But
I think too, I've been working in this space for a long time with Mighty Oaks. And one of the things I found that people don't, one is pride, two is not wanting to put the burden on someone else. But one of the things I found to be consistently, at least from my perspective, one of the reasons that guys don't ask for that help in the end is they're so tired of trying to get help. They're exhausted on the effort. Yeah. It's like nothing's going to help. And they believe like there's no way out. Like,
or they've done so many things and it's still maybe a little better, but it still comes back. It's still the same.
So you feel like it's going to be, the thought is it's going to be this way forever.
Right.
It's never going to be
exhausting.
better.
Do I really want to go do, and there's, I know there's plant medicine people do. I know you're not a big advocate of that. It's helped some people. I think it's probably been negative for some people because you're a Christian.
I've heard some good stories from people.
I think, and I grew up really godly family, Christian family, and my mom is like, "Don't do it. It opens a door, that you just go to the Bible." And I'm like, "Well, you understand the Bible more than I do." I think it can help people to an extent. I think it can be negative. I don't know.
You don't have to answer if you don't want, but have you tried it?
I haven't done iboga.
Yeah. No. I've talked to a lot of people who have done it.
Same, and like close friends.
Some guys have had great experience. Other guys have had terrible experiences.
Yeah.
Some guys end up right back where they were 6 months later, which I think
it can help. I know guys that's really showed them a lot, and they've found a lot of forgiveness in the things they've done in life. Like, I think when you're in the right, going to war and you're taking people's lives, I still think it's going to affect you because I don't think we're born to kill other people.
No, we're not.
You know what I mean?
It's necessary that we do.
It's absolutely necessary. And that's the excuse you can hold.
Right.
And you can also feel bad about killing people. You can also hope peace could be.
Yeah.
The necessary evil of taking human life is going to affect you in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've said this quite a bit. It's when I go do the resiliency talks. It's like going to war, preparing for war, killing people in war, like all those things. Like we were never created to do that. Whether people are Christian or not, I firmly am with certainty believe that we were created by God to create us for with a plan and purpose for our lives.
For love.
But it was the love. It was never to do this.
Yeah.
But it's necessary, and we know it's necessary even in the Bible, right?
Absolutely.
God has raised up good men to extinguish evil, but it's still not by design. So there's a consequence to that, and the consequence is anxiety, depression, PTSD, hopelessness, like physiological effects from the stress of combat, all these things.
Coming back and relating to people who haven't done it and finding that common ground where they're proud of what you did and you're proud of what you did, and it's okay. Some guys, I think there's guilt there. A lot of people have survivor's guilt. I have a lot of survivor's guilt. Doing what I think it would help a lot of guys is it's necessary. Like you're saying, it's necessary. It's okay to have hurt for things you've done. If you're a real human, you should have emotion. Sure. Guilt probably isn't the right thing. And no one should, the liberals and guys who came back from Vietnam that were like spit on and thrown stuff out, like then they felt bad about whether even they volunteered or they were forced to do a job they didn't want to do. And then they feel bad about it. And I think that guilt amplifies PTSD, honestly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, we talk, the show's the Resilient Show. The pillars of resiliency is mind, body, spirit, social. Sure. Obviously be a Navy SEAL, you got to be physically fit. You have to be mentally tough. You should be, right? Coming out of BUD/S, you're going to be physically fit.
Yeah.
At least, I think most people.
Some people, what's interesting about BUD/S is like, some guys come out of BUD/S and like, what the f-? Like, but they're tough as nails. Yeah. I won't say names. I have a really good buddy, excellent dude. And like, he was never like, he wasn't fat, but he was just like this weird kind of body shape. And like, he f***ing crushed it. And I'm like, I have to stay lean and mean, dude, and you're doing the same things as me. Like
some of those corn-fed guys are just soft, like thick, and they're still running like 16-minute 3 miles and
There was one kid, Martinka. I think he got the boot or something like that, but he would smoke cigarettes all weekend. He'd smoke cigarettes in the morning, and then he'd be buds, and he's doing everything all day, and he was like a chain smoker outside of, and I'm like, dude, I don't know how the hell you do that. Yeah. And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, dude, some people are
drinking Coca-Cola.
Oh man, can't do it, man.
Yeah. So you're supposed to be physically fit.
You do have a responsibility.
You have a responsibility to be. But mind, body, spirit, social, like your mind you should know your job well. You should be confident in it. You should have a good mindset for it. Socially, even though you can't pick who you work with, you can surround yourself with the right people. Yeah. But I'm a firm believer that the fourth pillar, the spiritual pillars, fundamentally the most important one, because if you had all those other three and you didn't have faith, you could still crash. But if you didn't have any of those other three, if your mind was gone, your body was broken, you didn't have any friends, if you had solid faith or relationship with Jesus, I believe you.
What gives you hope too?
Gives you hope, right?
And any of those can get better with persistence and faith that you can overcome.
It's the only one that can't be taken away.
Yeah.
You can take away your body. You can take away your health. You can lose your mind. You can take away your friends. But if you have faith, no one can take that away.
Absolutely.
And so you talked a lot about your mom and prayer and her faith and your dad, your sister. What would you say to the audience about from what you've seen in your childhood, from all the way back from 7 through combat, losing friends? What would you say the value of being resilient through having a foundation of faith?
I mean, I pray a lot.
Yeah.
And I wish things happened sooner, or like, and there's things in everybody's life that like they pray on and pray on and pray on, and things seem to stay the same. Maybe that means you should make a change in what you're doing. Depending on simple prayer or somebody else, if you pray enough, is going to show you the door, like open the door up and it's going to be obvious. That's, I think hard-headed people really love that. Like I'm hard-headed. I'll pray a lot for something and I'm like, damn it. Like, I'm going to look at that tree outside and I'm going to have 2 questions. Should I do A or B? If the tree falls, it's B, and it's like, I want those things. I want them to like, here's a head slap. Here's the choice. Sometimes you just need to make a choice.
Yeah.
Some change that you need to make a choice, whether while you're praying on it and you don't have an answer. I think making a choice gives you some sort of forward movement. Yeah. Right. Maybe then it's backwards movement and that was the wrong one. Well, then you know the right one. But staying stagnant and just simple praying doesn't always get you. Timing isn't on us as much as we want it to be. It's
a big struggle for me. I can hear it in your voice for saying that. You're make stuff happen. Very impatient, probably. Yeah. I'm like super impatient, man. I'm like, I have an idea, a vision, like I want to do it and it's going to get done. And I think God's really challenged me in that. And there's a story in the Bible, I'd butcher it if I try to quote it, but there's a couple who's like, they're supposed to be this blessed family and they can't have kids and they wait forever and they're praying, and God doesn't give them a child and they get too old to have children. At the end,
probably angry.
Probably angry, right? They're second, and my prayers going in a void. And then finally in their latter years, she gets pregnant and it's John the Baptist to pave the way for Jesus. Right. So it's like God's ways are better than ours. His timing's better than ours. And I was at this inauguration and I'm like, I remember being, man, in 2020, when I believe that they stole election from President Trump. Yeah. They stole election from the American people. Yeah. It like took so much from me and like really even it grew on me to challenge like, is everything that I fought for and been part of, that my family's been 100 years of service for, is it gone? Like, and I know a lot of other guys struggle with that. And then right now, I firmly believe that God had ordained that to happen that way because President Trump was not ready to be at that moment.
I agree. Where he's at now and his faith alone is way better. And to be able to show that,
And American people got to witness the contrast. Correct. There's such a contrast right now.
So it's not like first term and him now.
Oh yeah. Or between the opposing parties. Like it's no longer like Democrat, Republican, left, right. It's good and evil. Yeah. And people chose good.
Well, that's why there's so many Democrats that are like I'm being forced to agree with this other half of the Democrats that have gone so far the other way where it's like this back in the day, the Democrats and Republicans, one is progressive, one's like obviously conservative. And there was actually, okay, we'll work together. This happened because they both loved this country and they wanted this country and the people in it to be taken care of. You know what I mean? 100%. And it's gone so far the other way. It's delusional.
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. But that's, I think, another modern example of like God's timing, right?
Sure.
Like,
sure. Yeah.
But I'm right there with you. I'm impatient.
But you don't stop hoping and praying and having faith.
No, yeah. You got to lean forward and have faith and pray and then take action. Be a person of action. I mean, clearly you are. Your success of your company.
Try to be. So. It's always, life is not going to stop kicking you in the nuts. Yeah. And also taking care of you. But it's, like I said, good and bad things happen to both good and bad people alike. Sometimes I don't search for answers why. I just accept shitty things happen and move on.
Yeah. I always say, I wrote my book, An Unfair Advantage. The question, why do bad things happen to good people? I think the first part with that is none of us are good people. We're all sinners. We're all sinners, fundamentally flawed. And if there was ever a good person, there was only one. It would be Jesus. And he was born in a manger, lived his life on a run, was betrayed by his friends, arrested, beat, tortured, spit on, and murdered. So
we have the opportunity to keep being good after every forgiveness.
So as we wrap this up, we're at SHOT Show. You have any? What are you part of here at SHOT Show this week?
I mean, it's a pretty much a family reunion with all my brothers, and
it is for a lot of people getting together. And,
you know, that's one of the biggest things. I don't do a booth here. I stay extremely busy. I do like coming here to see some of my closest friends, and I have a few other. My buddy Ryan, we have a couple of businesses. He's got a new business to work on. We have an old business, so we're meeting with some retailers and wholesalers, and it's definitely a special time, honestly. And like, it's hectic, of course, but I'm always really grateful afterwards. And I'll come again because I get to see buddies that I'm really close still with a lot of my friends. We get together outside of work, but not this many at one time that can bring people together. Because a lot of the guys are working for businesses that are already here. So the opportunity exists to come here and see them as well.
Everybody comes together. Yeah, that's what I was telling Tiffany. It's like just a reunion.
It's amazing.
Yeah. You know, Frank Simmons. Frank
just
came by with the Forest Recon Association. And so
I've been supporting him when he was active, and before he got out for the Recon Foundation stuff, and then like I've been give them knives for competitions and like the foundation, and that's not even a team foundation. I didn't even know. I think they reached out one time before I knew him, and I was like, sure guys, like I want to support and help you guys. And then he's built me the most insane paddles for my shop, like the coolest stuff, man. He's such a good guy. Love that.
I got a paddle when I spoke at the graduation.
Yeah.
I've got to speak at 3 graduations now.
That's awesome.
You get a guest speaker gets a paddle, and he hooked one of them up.
That's awesome.
He does good paddles.
Insane.
Yeah.
He's a good man.
Well, awesome, man. So where can people find, I think everybody knows where you are, but Half Face Blade. We'll put the notes in the comment section. But.
Cool. Yeah, Half Face Blades. The wine is Warpaw Wine. There's one with the lion on it. It's based on the lion that my father drew. On the back, there's symbols and what they mean. So the back, it's called Warpaw. It's on warpaw.com. But some of them have a red handprint. And actually, crazy enough, I'll make it quick.
Oh, you're good.
The red handprint on a pony. So if you look at the old war ponies, a red handprint meant they brought their rider back alive.
I never do that.
Yeah.
That's pretty
so
cool.
I know since then it's been used on people's woman's face and stuff, and natives' faces, to say the government's not hearing us. You know what I mean? And what we need. And that's not the original where the handprint came from. It came from war ponies, not on the person. When a rider goes into combat and he kills his enemy and he puts a red handprint, that blood on the handprint, and he comes back alive on his horse. It's just really cool to me, you know. So that's what that means. Anyway, cool. And then Canoe Club. My main one's Half Face Blades. And,
right on.
Yeah.
Well, brother,
pleasure.
We got some other stuff coming up that Andrew's gonna be a part of, coming out soon. So
stoked on it, man.
Yeah. So for sponsors for the show, we're at SHOT Show, and we're in a Smith & Wesson booth. So super. I'd pull this off the wall and give it to him, but it's actually tethered on the wall. But this is we're gonna give Andrew, hook him up with the Stealth, Smith & Wesson Stealth in the 45. And we have to throw a Vortex optic on it, whatever you want. Vortex will put if you want a red dot, a scope, whatever you want to put on it, we'll throw on there. And I think you already have some, but we'll get you some Gators glasses.
I probably have some.
Yeah, they're awesome.
I have a bunch for my guys because grinding steel and stuff, like just the clear lens.
Did you see the new ones, the shields that have like kind of the, everybody has a mullet, has these big glasses nowadays.
Oh, I did.
So Gators makes those now for the work. They want to hit the workforce.
Yeah.
So we'll get some over to your steel grinders.
Right. Down.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. And I'm gonna get you some BioPro, which Eddie's right here. I gave Eddie BioPro, and now
he loves it.
Yeah.
Eddie's staying with me.
Yeah. Okay.
He's like every morning.
Yeah, we'll get you some BioPro, cool. and maybe if you ever want to go down to Bio Accelerator down in Columbia.
Yeah.
One, it's an amazing trip, and two, the stem cell there is that's where UFC sends everyone the highest end stem cell therapy.
Awesome.
Just amazing people down there. And then last but not least, our other sponsors, Holy Water, Ally Wealth Management, and make this show possible. So thank you to our sponsors. Thank you guys for listening. If you hadn't yet, like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you guys next week. Stay resilient. Hey, what's up, Resilient family? I am so grateful for each of you who tune in every week to hear our episodes. We have such incredible guests and topics that I am passionate about, our team's passionate about, and we could not do it without you. So we're thankful for you. We love you. We appreciate you locking arms with us to be more informed, to become a more resilient community. And I want to invite you to become a tighter part of that community by joining us on Patreon. If you go to our show notes below, you can click the link and get dialed into our Patreon and get extra content weekly. You can join for $15 a month and get behind the scenes footage, get closer access to me. I have monthly Zooms that I'll be doing with some members of the community. And so we'd love to get more involved. Again, go below in the show notes and click the link and join today.